Welcome back to Wrestling Flash. In this WWE and all things wrestling video, we are going to look at former AEW superstar on SmackDown, Cody Rhodes facing 20-time champion, the best and worst of SmackDown, and more. First, let's look at the best and worst of SmackDown. Welcome to the post-WrestleMania edition of Best and Worst of SmackDown. It was another solid show, perhaps having more direction than Raw did. Although Raw was great in its own right this week, SmackDown did well in storyline progression. It started with a top superstar making a challenge for WrestleMania Backlash. While the episode was not perfect, there was very little to complain about. Here were the ups and downs of the Blue brand this week. Number 3. Best, Nakamura to get a 15-month overdue title shot on SmackDown. Roman Reigns was on the last segment of SmackDown this week, and thankfully, it proved to be far more fruitful than his promo on Raw. While the earlier promo on the Red brand did little to establish anything, the one on the Blue brand was eventful. Nakamura came out and interrupted Roman Reigns. He looks to be the next challenger in line for a title shot. Interestingly, he had to wait 15 months before he could potentially get a world title shot. Around January 2021, Nakamura ran through multiple stars in an epic performance to seemingly earn a Universal title shot against Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble. However, he was just a pawn as Adam Pearce got a shock win upon Reigns, which Kevin Owens replaced Adam Pearce at the 2021 Royal Rumble, and Nakamura never got his title shot. It looks like he's finally getting a long overdue run for the gold. Number 2. Worst, the Ronda Rousey Charlotte Flair feud continues. Ronda Rousey opened the SmackDown after WrestleMania 38, declaring that she wanted a rematch against Charlotte Flair. WWE tried to do some damage control to make Rousey seem likable, and it worked with the crowd, so we can't fault that. Although it's not official yet, the two will seemingly clash in a rematch at WrestleMania Backlash. This time, however, there could be an I quit stipulation, meaning that Rousey is in a prime position to dethrone Flair and end her 6-month-long title reign. 8 months if you count her Raw Women's title run between August and October before the title swap with Becky Lynch. However, it was slightly disappointing to see as many expected Bayley to return and make a claim for the title. Number 2. Best, Lacey Evans' big character change on SmackDown. Lacey Evans is set to return soon. While it's going to be at least a few more weeks or a month more before we see her, we got to see a tease. After over a year, Evans seems to be dropping the sassy Southern Belle character and has officially turned babyface. She highlighted the struggles of her early childhood and her tenure as a U.S. Marine as WWE tried to make her as big a babyface as possible. It's a good change in character, and it seems as though her previous gimmick was a bit outdated. It will be interesting to see how WWE handles the change and where she fits into the women's division. Number 1. Worst, some of the name changes. We had a few debuts on SmackDown this week. Butch FKA Pete Dunne made his in-ring debut in a loss to Xavier Woods, while Marcel Barthel of Imperium made his debut as Ludwig Kaiser to introduce the debuting Gunther FKA Walter. Raquel Gonzalez also made her debut on SmackDown in a backstage promo and now goes by the name of Raquel Rodriguez. While that certainly isn't the worst name change, Ludwig Kaiser is an unnecessary one, as is Gunther and Butch. The name changes seem unreasonable, and even though WWE wants to trademark them, they continue to sound more ridiculous by the day. Number 1. Best, the end of the Happy Folks on SmackDown. The Happy Folks are no longer together. In the latest episode, Happy Corbin blamed Madcap Moss for his loss to Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania 38, and things soon broke down. After a few failed attempts at making Corbin laugh, Moss decided that he had enough of the former US champion and finally got the crowd to chant his name. The fans cheered as Moss turned on Corbin, turning face for the first time since his NXT debut in 2015. It was one of the show's highlights, and we're glad to see that WWE views Madcap Moss as more than just a comedic character. Paul Heyman makes a bold claim about Roman Reigns' faction. WWE Undisputed Universal Champion Roman Reigns has reached the top of the mountain after WrestleMania 38. The head of the table has been assisted in his journey by SmackDown Tag Team Champion, the Usos, and his advocate Paul Heyman. The Bloodline currently hold the most prestigious titles in WWE and has cemented its place as the most formidable group in the company. Paul Heyman is quite aware of the group's status and has made bold claims about the faction's legacy. Heyman took to his social media to acknowledge the Bloodline as the most dominant faction in sports entertainment history. The special counsel to Reigns stated that no other group in wrestling such as the Hart Foundation, DX, the Four Horsemen, etc. can compare to what they have accomplished in their run. The hashtag Bloodline is the most dominant faction in sports entertainment history, not the hashtag Horsemen, not the hashtag Heenan family, not the hashtag Hart Foundation, not #DX. Not even the #Dangerous Alliance can compare to the accomplishments of WWE's undisputed heavyweight champion, the #Tribal Chief at Roman Reigns, and #SmackDown Tag Team Champions, the #Usos. And there's simply no reason to ever even attempt to compare another manager, spokesperson, cornerman, #advocate, or #special counsel to me. We rule. It's our time now, and our time is #all time. #we the ones. We have to agree that Heyman's statement regarding the group could hold some truth to it, especially considering how much they've accomplished together. The transformation of Roman Reigns' character from the big dog to the tribal chief also brought a lot of changes around him. The most prominent change was the alignment with his cousins, the Usos, and recruiting Paul Heyman as his special counsel. We've seen the group surpass almost every opponent in their path and continue to check off accomplishments in their run as a faction. Roman Reigns has undoubtedly had a powerful presence as the top guy in WWE after allying with the Usos, and has grown further into his role as the final boss in the company. Roman Reigns has proved his status as the needle mover after capturing the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship to cement his faction's dominance. It's now time to see what the Bloodline has left to achieve, as they reveal their next move on SmackDown. Do you think the Bloodline is one of the most dominant factions of all time? Sound off below. Cody Rhodes to face 20-time champion. After a heartfelt promo this week, Cody Rhodes' first Raw match in 6 years is official for next week's edition. The American Nightmare made his triumphant return to WWE at WrestleMania by defeating Seth Rollins. Rhodes appeared on the Raw after WrestleMania 38 and delivered an emotional promo, stating that he wants to capture the WWE title to honor his father's legacy. Next week, Cody will finally have his very first match on Raw in 6 long years. He will be facing none other than former WWE champion The Miz. Cody Rhodes faced The Miz on various occasions during his initial WWE run. It has been quite some time since the two stars battled in a singles match on WWE TV. Their last singles match took place on the June 11, 2013, taping WWE Main Event. That night, The Miz picked up a win over Cody via submission. The Miz has already won the WWE title that Cody is currently eyeing. His first title win came in late 2010 when he successfully cashed in his Money in the Bank contract on Randy Orton on an episode of Raw. This WWE title reign saw The Miz defeat John Cena in the main event of WrestleMania 27. His second WWE title reign came last year when he cashed in his MITB contract on Drew McIntyre on the road to WrestleMania 37. The reign didn't last long, though, and The Miz later dropped the belt to Bobby Lashley. Judging by Cody's momentum at the moment, it won't be much of a surprise if he picks up a big win over The Miz on next week's Raw. What do you think? Will Cody manage to defeat The Miz next week? Former AEW superstar on SmackDown. An interesting bit of information has come out on Gunther's opponent from tonight's episode of SmackDown. Gunther made his big debut on WWE SmackDown on tonight's edition of the Blue Brand. He took on independent wrestler Joe Alonzo in singles competition, and it didn't take long for him to dispose of the young star. Joe Alonzo is a familiar name among all Elite Wrestling fans. He used to hold the camera for current AEW star Sammy Guevara during his vlogs. Alonzo made news last year when he interrupted an AEW panel during the All Out Fan Fest. He then had a heated verbal exchange with Fuego del Sol before being escorted out of the building by security personnel. Alonzo later shared a video of the incident on his official Instagram handle. Tonight's match against Gunther wasn't Alonzo's first one in WWE. On the March 21, 2022, episode of WWE Main Event, Alonzo took on Veer Mahan in a losing effort. Before making it to WWE, Alonzo had also wrestled a bunch of matches on AEW Dark. As for Gunther, he has arrived on the main roster alongside Ludwig Kaiser. The former Imperium member was a part of NXT UK, where he held the title for a whopping 870 days before moving to NXT in the US. Last year, the former NXT UK champion opened up on a potential main roster call-up. That's not a scenario I've talked about with them. I don't know. I'm happy in the situation I'm in now. I'm the only guy who holds a European championship in WWE, and I'm a representative of European wrestling. To be authentic with that, I've kind of got to live in Europe, if that makes sense. Going forward, nobody can stay on top forever. At some point, that's the nature of it. Nobody did that before, so we'll see what the future brings, he said. Now that the former NXT UK star has made his way to the big leagues, it remains to be seen how he fares against the very best that WWE has to offer. Will Gunther become a major star on the main roster in the near future? Let us know in the comments section below.